Ahmed is the Senior Advisor for Minister of State for Foreign Trade in the UAE, and he's also a partner at Norton Rose Fulbright. So he's a very talented man, Neil. Puts us to shame.
Well, I mean, see, when you're an advisor to the Ministry of State for Foreign Trade, I think you need probably, a little more than what we know, right?
I think so. Maybe just a little bit.
And
thank you very much for joining us here on TSB.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
It's great.
Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you here. And as usual, we have someone official like yourself. You very much dress up and you put us to shame here in the studios. So you're looking great today.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to dressing down, actually, as the weather cools down a bit. So.
Well, let's get serious. First of all, you're in here to talk about NextGenFDI, this initiative. How did it start? Where was the initial idea?
The initial idea came from His Excellency Dr. Thani. One of the things that we were tasked to do was really think about the UAE's approach writ large, right, to foreign direct investment. And we've done a very good job as a state in terms of attracting businesses through various free zones, various Emirates. But one of the things that we picked up is that the companies today, the pace with which they move, especially the digitally enabled companies, VC-backed companies, they like to move fast and they like to have as much integrated into a new market as they could get. So we looked at it from their perspective and tried to really understand what were the key areas that we needed to focus on in order to support companies that wish to scale up in this part of the world and use the UAE as a jumping point to other markets. Speed with which you can set a business up was a major factor. Banking readiness, access to banking, the ability to open up a bank account relatively quickly and painlessly was another factor. A relatively relaxed immigration system, so the ability to get visaed into the country, the golden visa was a prime factor to that. And strangely enough, when we spoke to a few companies, they said, this is all great if you can support us with this, but your real estate market is super hot right now. Yes. And how do you deal with that, right? So we spoke to a number of free zones who offered business licensing and explained this position to them. And then the free zones were extremely helpful and said, look, if we have scale-ups coming to the UAE, especially companies that are coming in masses with high headcount, we would be able to provide the necessary support when it came to commercial real estate. But then you start to think about these companies, and a lot of them are decentralized by nature, right? COVID did that. Right. The very nature of Web3 technologies, you're a decentralized company in many respects. So we started looking at real estate for individuals on a residential basis and spoke to a number of asset managers in the city of Dubai, in Sharjah now, recently as well. And they have committed to affordable community housing for employees of these companies. Right. One of the other things that we did was we looked at affordable school. Companies come here, they bring their employees over here, and accessing affordable education could be something that's heavily thought about. And so we tied up with Citizens, which is a new school that's been set up in Dubai that offers a British curriculum. And is really designed to support sort of an evolved sense of education. It was really cool. I really like this about the school in that they are training the kids to be entrepreneurs at a young age, because 14, 15 years from now, the want to be an entrepreneur is going to be a necessity as opposed to a nice to have.
Well, they'll probably end up doing jobs that haven't even been created yet. This is the challenge.
That's exactly what Dr. Adil Al-Zaruni, the founder of the school, has pointed out to. And so we thought that was a perfect fit, right? And decided to have Citizen School on board the NextGenFDI program. We launched in July. It was a resounding success. We've seen a number of companies that have expressed an interest in it. And from a broad geographical range, from the US to India to Southeast Asia. And one of the other things that we focused on was phase 2 of the launch. So we wanted to get it right with phase 1.
Right.
Started small to really test it out. And about a week ago, I believe, we started off with phase 2. And phase 2 includes Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, again, covering the free zones, banking institutions, affordable housing, and also G42 Cloud, which is the UAE's largest cloud platform services provider. Again, never been done before. We have all this infrastructure that we're helping companies with, but we don't have one of the gaps was the digital infrastructure that we needed to support them with. And that's what G42 Cloud does.
And when it comes to the NextGenFDI, if I'm talking to a friend who's in Singapore and he's thinking, well, how do I qualify? What does a business or a company owner need to do in order to qualify for the NextGenFDI?
If you are a digitally enabled business and have exceptionally talented individuals that are keen to enter the UAE and use the UAE as a vantage point for the rest of the region, come and talk to the Ministry of Economy. That's what the NextGenFDI offering is all about. So you could be in food tech. You don't have to be a programmer. You could be in advanced manufacturing. Just yesterday, His Excellency launched Gecko Robotics, which is an American advanced robotics company that does advanced inspections on critical national infrastructure. And they've come in here to set up their international headquarters. So it's a pretty broad range when we say digitally enabled.
Well, most businesses have a digital component these days, don't they? So I'm sure you're going to find most places are going to find an area where they qualify to some degree.
And I'll tell you what, some of the companies that we've come across our desk as a result of the initiative, it's incredible to see the application of technology into sectors that previously were fairly brick and mortar, if you think about it, right? Hospitality is one of those areas where the amount of data that's coming out of some of these companies in the hospitality sector, it just makes perfect sense for a country like the UAE, given that hospitality and tourism happens to be a major industry sector.
No, absolutely. In fact, the way you have spoken about it, the NextGenFDI sounds like a very complete 360 package where you come in and literally everything is available and structured for you, for the ones who are coming in and setting up their businesses. But if you have to look at one specific area which is growing insanely globally, and that is cryptocurrency, blockchain. Does the NextGenFDI also probably have a special place in the heart for the ones working in the cryptocurrency area?
So the way I approach this and the way the ministry is looking at this, it's taking a pretty mature approach to the concept of crypto and welcoming it to the UAE. We're starting up the top with Web3. Right. So Web3 technology is far broader. There are several use cases and applications. So TRM Labs is an American company that's under the NextGenFDI program. Their mission really is to ensure that it prevents crypto fraud from taking place. Right, so it's not just welcoming the exchanges to the UAE and then helping them figure out which exchange they need to be regulated by. The short answer to it is yes, but obviously taking a much broader approach towards it. So we're very interested in public and private blockchain infrastructure companies. We're very interested in talking to companies that can provide tokenized solutions in a multitude of sectors, and not just dealing with cryptocurrencies.
Makes sense. But then, is there a cap on a minimum, as they would say, a minimum cap on the revenues that a company makes, or is it open to literally someone who's just started up yesterday?
No, we haven't set a cap per se. I think it's left for the company to figure out its potential burn rate when it comes to establishing and setting up in the UAE, and whether it makes financial sense. They'd obviously take that under advisement, but to the extent that they feel this is a good market, that it's worth exploring and capturing, it really doesn't matter what the cap what the cap size is of that particular company. So we've spoken to companies that are obviously very, very large.
I'm sure.
We've spoken to companies that fit
Mid-cap.
nicely in the mid segment, and that's a big part of the target
Right.
market. But then you have a number of companies. We spoke to a company that was in the Web3 space, blockchain, and it's four guys, but they're doing really, really well,
Wow.
and they've decided to make the UAE its home base,
Phenomenal.
right? So it's a pretty broad spectrum. Now we can support them if they're large companies with mass migrations, but at the same time, we will most certainly welcome exceptionally talented people with a digital spin to the business that they're conducting, and happy to have them explore their ideas over here.
It's great. It's a great vision for obviously the country and the business community. But when it comes to the NextGenFDI initiative, how does it differentiate from, say, existing plans? If you're a company that's looking to migrate wholly or part of their business to the UAE,
I think this one has been. It's one of the few programs that we've tried to look at on a global level that's fully integrated, right? So when we welcome a company over here, it's not just about getting a quick license and a bank account. We're going a few steps further over here. We're really trying to understand their business needs, trying to make sure that the employees of the company, as they migrate, are looked after. So for schooling, for instance, there are just a few markets where that's actually done.
and who would you say on a global scale would you be competitors when you're competing for businesses to migrate? What are the other countries or cities that you're really competing with in this space?
I wouldn't say we're competing.
Or are you
because
competing against people who may not want to move? Is there that angle too?
competing against people who may not want to move, but I think what we're competing for is innovation. We want ideas to be birthed in the UAE. And that comes from digitally led businesses, right? The natural knock-on effect of a digitally led business is the analytics that comes out of those businesses are likely to create new ideas. We want those ideas over here. So wherever those ideas are sitting at this point in time globally, and the knee-jerk reaction would be the usual suspects, but we have seen some incredible ideas coming out of jurisdictions where you would never have imagined. So I'm a little hesitant to name places,
Sure,
because that wouldn't be doing justice to other jurisdictions where you never would have thought ideas, digital ideas, come out from. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, right?
Right.
Definitely.
I mean, would it be right to say what it was for, say, architects and civil engineers about 25 years back, it is for digitally enabled people or talents right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, digital architecture right
There you
now, right? The manner in which data is absorbed, parsed, structured, commercialized, and then put into the market it requires some very, very intelligent people who know how to structure those, and AI scientists, machine learning consultants, programmers, developers. Those are the sorts of technical architects that we are looking at today as compared to 25 to 30 years ago.
I'm sure. Now, you mentioned about mass immigration, moving of so many people who probably, if it's a huge size company, there was a mention of golden visas.
Yeah.
So how does a golden visa come into or does it come into only for the investors or for the employees as well?
No, it comes in for the employees as well.
Interesting.
The idea here is, and again, I mentioned two things, right? If you're exceptionally talented
Yep.
and digitally enabled, the talent is what draws the golden visa towards the company, and that applies not just to the investor, but it also applies to the employee. Now, naturally, there are certain metrics that need to, eligibility criteria, if you will.
Right.
But those have been significantly revisited as of today, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, to allow for golden visa applicants to increase in the UAE. One example was the previous salary threshold was 50,000 dirhams. Now it's 30,000 dirhams, right? So it's a continued approach in terms of making sure that we are attracting and retaining that exceptional skill that we're looking for those ideas to come here and then for those ideas to grow.
And where is the best place when you try to market the idea of next-gen FDIs? Cam, where is the best place that you market this to businesses?
Geographically speaking,
Yes,
or
yeah. If you, I mean, it's hard because, as you said, if there's not a certain hub or a talent base of people you're trying to look to come to Dubai, how do you position this worldwide so people know that this is available to them to come to Dubai?
So we've run a pretty interesting set of marketing campaigns through the ministry, and in fact, I think that's how I've that's how you might have heard about it.
Yes, certainly.
We're talking to our colleagues at various embassies globally as well, and working very closely with our colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
So it's got to be UAE embassies in other territories.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that are going to look to try and attract talent.
And that's been an incredible experience. Just working with the folks in different embassies as well, and picking up the ideas and the technologies and the businesses that are coming from those jurisdictions, and that's why it's jaw-droppingly incredible to see certain technologies emanating out of countries where you would never have expected it to be.
Well, and can you give an example of some of those countries that maybe we're underestimating their knowledge and their concept of the technologies?
Sure. So I would look at East Europe, Estonia, Latvia. We've seen some incredible Web3 technology coming out of there. Recently in South America, we're seeing a lot of fintech coming out. Sub-Saharan Africa and Africa in general. I mean, Africa adopted fintech technology far earlier than a lot of other countries did. And what that's done is it's given a lot of communities the leapfrog effect of adapting to next generational fintech, because they didn't have the challenge of legacy banking systems that you would see in other jurisdictions. So this phenomenal technology coming out of sub-Saharan Africa as well.
Yeah, necessity's an incredible invention, isn't it? So the need for necessity is an incredible way to be inventive, definitely.
No, absolutely. In fact, while we're talking about these countries that probably one didn't expect so much knowledge to come out, I'm sure that there would be some countries which would be absolutely more than ready to take up and to take that leap for the NextGenFDI project. Would you be in a position to name some of those countries?
Sure. I mean, look, there's no question about it. The U.S. is a big driver. We've seen a huge inflow of American business. We've seen a fair amount of European business coming to plant their flag over here as well. India has been an interesting driver of NextGenFDI applicants, and across the spectrum, again, dealing with digital health, fintech, crypto, blockchain, broad spectrum. So those are the classic countries that we prepared and knew would come through the NextGenFDI door.
All right. Now, what does that mean? All of these things that we are doing here with the NextGenFDI mean to someone who's already living here?
Yeah.
Does it change fortunes for that one person who's been here for the last 10 years, dabbling between jobs, trying to make his living and say like, listen, I'm digitally enabled, but I probably didn't have enough opportunities. I can't migrate to US. I can't go to Canada because the processes are longer. Australia had shut their doors for a very long time. But now if these companies come in to UAE, does it open floodgates for the person who's already living here?
That's a really thoughtful question, and we thought about that as well, right? It does a number of things for UAE-born companies with new technologies that are coming in. There's a transfer of technology when it comes to NextGenFDI, just by default, because you're dealing with a digitally enabled company that's coming to the UAE, establishing itself, and that the technology is being brought in and harvested over here, and new technologies are being developed. Existing companies over here have that to take advantage of. That leads to commercial partnerships, strategic alliances, joint ventures, potential acquisition opportunities, potential investment opportunities for those businesses, right? You're also looking at upskilling unemployment. So existing employees in companies over here might find a new NextGenFDI company coming into the UAE, and it becomes an attractive proposition for them to be a part of that story, right? So there are benefits as a result of that as well.
Well, Kyan, we know you're a very busy man, so we do appreciate you coming in and being so generous with your time this afternoon. It's exciting to hear so much about NextGenFDI, which really does, as we know, Neil, kind of build on the UAE's global position, but also help drive it into the next generation as part of a knowledge-driven economy, which is a great vision.
See, I mean, this is what it is. We've always said that, UAE is a melting pot of cultures. And now it's not just melting pot of cultures. With the NextGenFDI project, we'll be a melting pot of technologies and innovators right here in the centre.
We had to really become an entrepreneurial city. Kayan Anwala, the Senior Advisor for Minister of the State for Foreign Trade in the UAE and partner at Norton Rose Fulbright, thank you very much for coming in and sharing the story.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
You're on TSB, Talk Sport Business here on Talk 100.3.